Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Everybody's raring to get back to business here, so we'll call the General Purposes Committee meeting to order. We have a motion on the minutes. Moved and seconded. Errors or omissions, all those in favor, post carried. The one item of business on the GP agenda is the snowfall event and the response. We'll call on Larry Ford and assorted individuals. That was a good time, eh, Larry?
Oops.
So we have your report here. Do you want to add anything to it or highlight it?
Nothing further to add.
Okay.
Chair, but I'm here for questions.
Okay, Councillor McNulty.
Thank you very much. First of all, start off with a great report. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for men and women that got us through the snow. I think we were one of the few municipalities that really didn't have any issues and that couldn't have been mitigated compared to what we heard around. The only one I heard was that those on 11:30 said that Vancouver and Richmond, and I never like to be included with Vancouver in anything, so that I knew it wasn't Richmond that was having issues on it. So thank you very much, and I think it should be taken back to the men and women that were helping us with the snow. But I do have some, just a couple of questions, if I may. They weren't explained. For example, in the Volunteer Assistance Program, there were 70 Richmond residents that got help. How are they identified? Is there something out there that if Mary Jane down the street from me needs some help, she could get her
Through the
walk?
Snow Angels program.
Yeah, through the Snow Angel
Councilor
program,
Murphy, yeah.
Volunteer Assistance Program, and our GP9, your page 5.
Yes.
How do we identify those people? Or how do they get identified?
I'm sorry, through the chair. The individuals that were helped?
Yeah, it says 73 Richmond residents.
Yes, they make an application. Oh, wait. Let me have.
Go ahead.
They make an application through the Snow Angels program to get on the list.
Okay.
And then they contact the Snow Angels program to be implemented or to be enacted for their particular address.
All right. I'm not saying if I didn't know, many others wouldn't know. So I think it's something we might put out there. Thank you very much for the 73 that you helped on it. It's great. The other question I had, the tickets, there were 33 tickets issued. And what was the process and what was the value of those 33 tickets? I'm surprised that, if it, not that I want to see education over punishment, but.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, I have additional stats because there were 2 snow events and the report reflects the 1 snow event. So there were a total of 88 calls for service. There were 54 tickets issued in total.
Okay. What's the value? I got a ticket. What?
The value, if you pay an early ticket, it would be $45. The regular ticket is $70 and a late ticket is $90. A late payment is $90.
No, it's a comment that, if you're going to get a ticket, obviously public need to know that as well. And thank you very much. The other thing, and there's obviously nobody here from the RCMP, but I know some of the RCMP were, it's not our jurisdiction, but is with regard to a clean car, with regard to snow. I got slapped a couple times from the person in front of me driving too fast in the snow going up, etc. What is a clean car? The front window, the back window, and the roof? Or just the front window with the windshield wipers and we can go down the road and we're all snowed in?
Chair to Councillor McNulty, I believe that's correct. I believe those, the roof has to be cleaned as well as the headlights, taillights.
Okay. Well, again, that could be something that the RCMP could put out there. And the other thing that didn't surprise me, but was that the MOTI was unable to respond. I don't know, Your Worship, through you, I think there's some letters, you'd think we were on the highway to hell or 401. on television and stuff that they're not able to respond. Obviously, they have some pretty good and pretty lucrative contractors out there doing well. And obviously, I think, given that's in our jurisdiction, that we express our concern, how we can do to help and mitigate the issue. But their responsibility, because it all comes back to us in the long run. But overall, again, I just to say, Mr. Ford, to you and your people, thank you very much for a great job. And everywhere I went, I had no problem with Richmond. And the roads were bare, the lanes were bare on the main arterial roads, and even in many of the side streets. So the brining works. Thank you very much.
So the reference to sending a letter to the MOTI, that's part 2 of our staff recommendation, right? Okay. And the other thing is, as Mr. Corrado said, there's some updated stats. If there's anything to update on your report, including what was just said, if we could have a memo before our council meeting next week, we should have up-to-date, current, close to the minute information.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few follow-up questions from Councillor McNulty's lead and then a couple others. So first off, I guess, about the Ministry of Transportation not being able to respond. How did staff learn that? Or how did, was it through RCMP who learned? Or did they actually call us and say, we can't deal with the Stevenson overpass or any other highways?
It's just observations. They, given that, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it froze. The Alex Fraser was a sheet of ice. The tunnel was a sheet of ice. There were trucks sliding backwards on the Alex Fraser. If there had been any pre-treatment down, that would have, it would have been prevented. There was, I believe, a lack of any sort of foresight. They did this 2 years ago as well. Didn't get out before the storm, and it reflected, the same conditions happened. This time it really backed up traffic. I'm sure there were cars running down past your place that were parked there. And we could not respond to those streets then. We couldn't get to those neighborhoods. We just couldn't get the trucks there.
Thanks. Just to add on that, I do know many issues that Richmond residents or staff, the city of Richmond dealt with where they were stuck, couldn't get through the tunnel until 4 a.m. I was the longest commute ever, just within Richmond. I was 2.5 hours to get to pick up my daughter from daycare. So yeah, there was lots of issues just in Richmond, but it wasn't our crew's issue. It was the width of the road. You can't get around stuck vehicles. In relation to snow on vehicles, actually, I know 2 people who had their windshields cracked because off the top of a semi-truck, the frozen layer of ice shot off the back and went through one and cracked another windshield. So those need to be addressed as well. Vehicles coming from the port where the containers have been sitting cold and just get picked up and brought onto the roads. Next one, I had a question of in regards to the tickets and now with updated number. So if there's 88 calls for service between these 2 events, 54 tickets, what's the situation with the 34 non-ticket calls for service?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that's a very high ratio of tickets to calls for service. And in the case where a call is attended and there isn't a ticket issued, typically the snow has been removed upon inspection of the bylaw officer.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. And next one I had is probably for buildings. It relates to roof loads. I know with all that amount of snow sitting, loading on roofs, and then just a few weeks after there was a fire on the top of Richmond Ice Center. I don't think the investigation found that it was due to the compounding snow load, but did we have any high vulnerability or some leaks because of sagging in roofs because of that event?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we did have some experiences where we did have some leaking roofs, specifically at Watermania in the lobby area, and then at the CNET loft, we had issues to do with the cold and the snow there. Otherwise, we did a comprehensive kind of review of all the city buildings throughout the city for a vulnerability assessment, and then we found that there wasn't really any action necessary at that point.
Okay, great, thanks. My last question, if I may, through the chair, is in relation to the brine and the sand and the salt that was referenced in the report. From these events, I know it wasn't, there's no graph, I like data and stuff, but did we actually use a lot of sand and salt for these two events, or was it mostly brine?
It was mostly, through the chair to Councilor Wolf, it was mostly brine. When the temperatures did drop significantly, we should note that we did have two of the coldest days on record, the 21st and 22nd. We did apply, that's where we put the sand into the salt to give it extra traction, but the brine was the greatest component for us.
Perfect. Just a final comment then. I've talked to many people who have compared Richmond's servicing of the roads for these events and others, and I haven't heard one say that another municipality did a better job than Richmond. I can't believe how many people know the word brine in Richmond now and can see the lines on the road and know what they're talking about. So yeah, kudos to the great services that were provided this early winter. Thanks.
Councillor Hobbs.
Oh, thank you, and through the chair. Well, I think the questions have been largely asked and answered, but I do just want to echo the compliments to staff for getting the roads cleared. I also haven't heard a lot of complaints from members of the public, and my own observations were that our major roads were pretty clear. I like the report. I agree with the priorities regarding our ulterior roads and also section line roads and bus stops. That makes sense. The rolling average for the budget every 4 years, that makes sense. And incrementally it will go up. So I think it's good to acknowledge the hard work, long 12-hour, 24/7 shifts in very cold conditions. So I think we did do a good job on that, and people should be recognized for that. So that's important. The Snow Angels program, it occurred to me, I think you had like 40 people or whatever, but when I looked around my neighborhood and other neighborhoods too, I saw a lot, and actually on my own street, I know for a fact that people did go out and shovel other people's sidewalks, and they might not be registered, so I would venture to say, and I'd put money on it, that we have more Snow Angels in Richmond than that are registered in the program. And maybe they'll sign up, maybe they won't, but that's just a good neighborly thing to do, and I think it happened a lot, more than the numbers reflect. So with the Ministry of Transportation, I know you answered it, but I just didn't hear whether, sorry, I wasn't gonna ask you a question. Did they ever give a reason though? I mean, it sounds like they had this experience 2 years ago. They should have planned for it. For whatever reason, they didn't plan or they didn't execute the plan. Was that a conscious decision on their part? Were there staff shortages, equipment failures? Was there some reason why those fairly obvious things weren't done? Because it's not new to us, right?
Through the chair to Councilor Hobbs, no, it's not new to us.
Yeah.
It's interesting that 2 weeks ago, just during the week between Christmas and New Year's, I received a call from the main road manager of maintenance asking if it would be worthwhile to have a meeting with all the Lower Mainland representatives from roads to see how they performed. I said it was going to be a very short meeting. But I think they're looking for feedback. I don't, for them to do it twice, it's almost like it's a budget saving. I can't say that, that would be wrong to do, but it's interesting that it happened twice in the last 2 years and with real repercussions to the adjacent municipalities.
Sure. So I am in favor of us communicating somehow. I'll see what we do, but just make the last point for anybody from the MOTI that's listening. These are life and death issues. Like traffic issues are very serious. More people are injured and die in traffic related issues than anything else really in our community. So yeah, that's important, and it's important for us to work in cooperation because most people might not realize that the overpass isn't ours or that certain parts of the roadway in Richmond aren't ours. And so it's a shared responsibility, and I'm sure that they'll reflect on that and improve their decision-making, I hope. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Al.
I have a few questions. So how much do we know about the system of the MOTI? For example, do they have their own team for snow cleaning, or they contract out to private contractors. So how do they
Chair
work?
Council, it is Main Road Contracting that looks after the Ministry of Highways routes. So it is contracted out to them, and has been for quite a few years. It's, sometimes they're on the ball.
Okay. And are you saying that there's no communications system between the city or individual cities and the MOTI? For example, when the Weather Canada say this is going to be a snow warning, and then there's nothing going on between the city and, the cities and MOTI in regard of preparation or cleaning?
Through the Chair, Councilor Allen, no, it would be through Main Road that we would be contacting if there was any reason to contact them. We try to look after our jurisdiction as best we can. And the only dual street that actually does turn into MOTI responsibility and ours is Knight Street. And we don't take a break on Knight Street where through their responsibility, through their area, we actually continue on because it's a kilometer underneath the 91 overpass that is actually MOT, half a kilometer on either side is MOTI responsibility. And rather than have our plows lift up and stop salting and brining, we carry on through that section, so.
Well, I think things have to be changed soon because, there may be some more snow coming. And I think this breaking down of the system is not working. Now, I have also questions about the warming centers. So in the report, it says that from December 19 to 25, we opened the warming centers. So were the warming centers not open during the first snowstorm, the November 29 period? Did we not open any warming centers at all?
Through your worship, to Councillor Al, South Farm Warming Centre was open after kind of mid-November, so they were open earlier in November. However, the Brighouse Warming Centre did not open until December 19th because the facility was being used for Richmond Cares, Richmond Gives Christmas Fund.
Oh,
So.
okay, that's very good. Yeah, it's not clear in the report. That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So, wow, I'm so glad that this came forward as on the agenda, because had it not, I'm sure that all of council would have brought it up to, let's write a letter to MOTI. So, on a lot of these overpasses, Blundell Overpass, Teeston Highway, Westminster Highway, we're plowing up to our property line, but not on the MOTI overpasses. Is this something we want to consider having the Ministry of Transportation contract us to do? Since we're already on both ends of the overpass, wouldn't it make logical sense for them to spend whatever it would with mainland to us, because we're already there?
Through the Chair to Councillor Day, the Steveston overpass is MOT, but Canby, the rest are ours.
So it's
That's the
just,
only one, but again, that's another one that we often carry on over and do.
yeah, it just seems logical to me since you're already on the job on both the east and the west side. My next question is, RCMP contacted staff to please request help on the overpass at Steeson Highway. Do we have a camera that would be able to see what's going on that overpass so that in the future we could maybe see the traffic building and make a call to mainland?
Through the Chair to Councillor Day, no. We're just at the intersection of 5 and Steveston. It's the last.
Maybe that's something we should consider so we can, call them right off the bat when we see that things are backing up. I live at Steeson and 5 Road, and it was a parking lot, and I couldn't believe it. People were abandoning their cars on my street and walking to their townhouses because they couldn't get home. It was absolutely crazy. So brine, everybody's fascinated by this brine issue. Is that when you just mix the brine with water and then spray it on the street, right? Is that what it is? Is it that simple?
Through the Chair to Councillor Day, yes.
Okay.
It's the rock salt, and it's a 22.5% mixture of salt versus water, so.
So is that what contributed on GP7 to saving 5,000 tons of salt?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, yes.
Wow, well done, well done.
We've tripled our usage of brine compared to salt over the past 3 winters now.
Right. So I got to ask you about YVR. I got to fly on December 25th, and I was lucky enough to get out, but there were, as you know, planes all over the place. Did they at any point ask for help from the city at YVR?
Through the chair to Councilor Day, yes, they did.
Yeah.
In the middle of the snowstorm on the 20th.
Oh, that's helpful, yeah.
Said no.
You're sitting on a plane for 8 hours, waiting for your plane to go to the gate. You can get off the plane. I mean, it's just craziness. Okay, we did get a letter from a citizen who tripped over a Lime scooter on a sidewalk. It was in the snow and it wasn't in the rack, or it should have been. Do we require the Lime program to shovel their racks so that the scooters and bikes can get where they need to be?
Wouldn't that be a matter for the contractual obligations and probably need to go into closed on that? Lloyd, don't we need to go into closed on that?
I'd imagine that we would,
Okay, well then, hold that question for closed.
Okay, well, and thank you. Great job, everybody. I mean, I've had nothing but compliments, except for the lady who tripped on the Lime bike, so thank you.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the report, and yeah, thanks for everybody's hard work with snow removal. I think I see it differently as being here and seeing all the work that went into it. I can see how, how we've progressed with snow removal. But I did get some complaints. I'm not gonna lie. Some people ask me, why don't we do as good a job as this other municipality? And I explained that we don't often get as much snow and we don't have as many hills, and so we don't have the equipment that other municipalities need to have. Some other municipalities do like all the side streets as well, but they're a lot smaller than we are. Their communities like the size of like a quarter of our city. So anyway, there's a lot of factors to it. But I was just curious about a couple of things. With regards to the, I'm just curious about that the salt usage number as well, with the 5,000 pounds saved. Is that inclusive of the salt that we use to make the brine, or are we not counting that in the number?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, that number is, if we had not been using brine and just had rock salt spreading, that's how much more we would have used in addition to what was used for making the brine.
Right. Okay. Regarding I might be confused, but earlier on in last year in November or whatever, when we were talking about what we were going to do for a pilot project for clearing the multi-use pathways, how did that go? And did we clear all the multi-use paths that we said we were going to? And I'm not saying this as a trick question because I know that some weren't done, but like, how did it go?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, it did not go well.
Yeah.
One of the reasons was we had to address the major streets first, and
there was so much.
I think it was on, yeah, it actually was the 10th greatest snowfall in the past 85 years. Okay, so it racked up there pretty good. And once we let people walk on it, it compacted, and the cold temps, we couldn't break the bond between the snow and ice and the asphalt. If it had been a normal snowfall, I think we would have been okay. But we ended up, we had one truck out and made 5 passes, including people there with a hand crew, and we still were having difficulty getting to break that bond between the ice and the asphalt pathway. The only thing I could think of next time is that we actually put a truck on it right away, but again, you're taking it away from the work that it's doing on the roadway. It was just an unusual event.
Yeah, really treacherous situation to deal with. Yeah. Okay, and a question about what the content of a letter, if it gets sent to the Ministry of Transportation. Do we say what's going to be in the letter, or do you propose
It's number 2.
Oh, it's already there?
Yep.
Oh, No, no, I mean, what is gonna be in the content of the letter, I just was wondering if we were gonna ask them for compensation for, like, because we went 800 whatever thousand over budget. Are we gonna ask them for compensation for what we had to deal with on the Steveston overpass or any of their jurisdictions in the letter? That doesn't happen?
Okay, Mr. Irving, did you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, your worship, to Councilor Glanders. I think immediately in terms of the content of this letter, no, but certainly, this is a regional issue, has been brought up at REAC, as Mr. Ford noted. So we're certainly not the only ones noting this concern. And we have heard from Modi that, yes, they recognize there's an issue. We'll see what the response is. But certainly if it's at some point where clearly there was any issue with Main Road following through with their contractual obligations or anything like that, we would start talking to Tony's group and seeing if there's other actions we need to take.
Okay, just one more question. This is regarding, in the report, regarding the warming centers. Page GP8, the warming centers. So I was told that we were closing the warming centers at 7 a.m., which is before the sun comes up, and so it's often the coldest time of day, and nothing else is open for people to go get a coffee or go to a library. So I was wondering if that was true, and what it would take to keep them open till 9, for example, instead.
Through your worship, to Councillor Jalanders, the reason why we have the operating hours for the South Farm Warming Centre 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is so that there is the opportunity for those that are staying at the warming centre to either move to other locations, whether they come to the drop-in center or whether they are shuttled over to the emergency shelter, is because the school opens, the elementary school, which is within the park. So what we don't want to have is the interaction of folks within the park. So we intentionally have created those hours to allow a bit of a break. The Salvation Army, which operates that shelter, ensures that if it is a very cold day, that those individuals that are at the warming center have an opportunity to go to either their emergency shelter on Horseshoe Way, or they can be transported over to the drop-in center over here at Brick House.
And so that was only at South Arm then, and the emergency, the one that opened on the 19th was open later?
The drop-in center that operates out of Brick House, the hours are 8 p.m. till 8 a.m.
8.
And then the drop-in center, the hours were transitioned so that there was that opportunity just to transition right into the drop-in center. So both organizations, Salvation Army and Turning Point Recovery Center, whose society who is operating the Brick House, have been collaborating so that they can ensure that those individuals who are experiencing homelessness have an opportunity to go to a warm location. The emergency shelter at Horseshoe Way has also opened up their cafeteria, so should they be full with all their beds, they have been providing mats, and they have ensured that if anyone shows up at the emergency shelter, that they will not turn someone away.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly, how can we not do a good job here in Richmond? We are quite flat, okay? So, but I think I already know the answer to this particular question here, and it's a bit of a rhetorical question. And this goes back to when I used to operate one of the snow plows here a few decades ago. You want to tell me right now, if we go down Steveston Highway with our plow, we lift the blade, go over the overpass, put the blade back down and go? It just makes no sense. Why wouldn't we just, because Richmond residents, they don't realize that's MOT. They think, it is still Richmond. For that short period of time, shouldn't we be just plowing that overpass?
Yes, we should.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, many of the issues with MOT, that's a regional issue, as alluded to there. And that's something that I'm sure Metro would certainly have more influence than just us alone, Mayor. Thank you.
Right, and as we've said, recommendation number 2 is to send a letter to the MOTI and all that stuff. All right,
Recommendation.
so that's moved, and is it seconded? Moved and seconded. Further discussion, all those in favor, any opposed, that's carried. Thanks very much, and please convey our gratitude to the people at the Works Yard for all the hard work. Those 12-hour shifts going right through the night, they must be really difficult. So we do appreciate it.
Move adjournment.
Okay, moved and seconded, all those in favor of adjournment? Any opposed? That's carried, so we're now adjourned. Well, the next one is the Finance Committee. We'll call that to order. We have a motion on the minutes. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Now, we're to have a delegation from KPMG. Are they here today? Okay, please go ahead. Now, we have your materials. Generally, the delegations are 5 minutes, so if you could go accordingly to that. So please introduce yourself and tell us about the report.
Well, good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council, and Happy New Year. We are here with our audit planning report, and it is in your package starting at FIN 11. Now, we could go through the report, or we can just answer questions, and we'll be happy to do that, and I will
Why don't
take
you just
instructions.
give us what you want to emphasize?
Sure. I'll have the senior manager, Anu, just quickly go through one page in the report, which is the highlights page on FIN 14.
FIN 14, okay. We got it?
Thank you, CJ. FIN 14 just goes over the highlights of the audit. We're pleased to provide this report to you, which is our audit planning for the financial statement audit of the city for the year ended December 31st, 2022. A few things to highlight here. We talk about the risk relating to the audit. These are risks that we see in any audit, so they're not particular to any city. We identify those, we look at the risk. We did not identify anything significant. However, we also cover some areas of focus here, which are listed here. If you look later in the report, we go over the specific procedures that we perform. So for example, for tangible capital assets, we test any additions, any disposals, any changes and things of that nature. So I won't go over all the details, just wanted to highlight this is a small sample of all the procedures we'll perform. Appendix 1 has our required communications to management as well as to you that are required. I would want to turn your attention, I guess, to FIN 18, which is just a list of inquiries we're required to make of you. And I would use that to maybe stop at this point to see if there's anything to add for that.
So does that conclude your remarks? Because then we'll go to questions after that.
Sure, maybe we'll touch on materiality. And
Okay, so materiality, we set our materiality based on forecasted expenses. So if you compare to last year, it did increase a little bit. That being said, we do set it at a lower level to look at other balances. So it's not as though we don't look at anything less than materiality. It's just to say in aggregate at that amount, anything will be significant. Other things to highlight is that we are independent of the city and we have procedures to ensure that we're independent in the work that we perform for the city and related entities. And the last item here, just Appendix 2, has current developments relating to accounting standards that are coming to play, and we work with the city to ensure that they're implemented accordingly.
Your Worship, that concludes our presentation.
All right, Councillor Day.
Thank you so much. I just had a question. So this is the audit plan from KPMG. Did you develop this with city staff, or is this something you do independently?
Through the chair to Councillor.
Unknown caller. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry.
No worries. The audit plan is prepared by us, but in order for us to prepare our audit plan, we do have what we call a planning meeting with management to understand the operations for the year, and then we're able to put our plan together.
Okay, so is it a fluid plan? Like if we discover during the process that, I don't know, we spent 800,000 more on brine than we normally do, is it possible to adapt the plan? Okay, thank you so much.
Councillor Liu.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, through you to the delegation. Thank you very much for this. I'm curious about FIN 33, page 23. There's the new effective accounting standards. It talks about asset retirement obligations that are coming into effect. Now, there were no examples given, so I'm just wondering if this would include such things as, say, demolition costs, or, like, I know when we took down our old pool, it was something like in the neighborhood of $2.4 million. And so while still that doesn't hit your materiality threshold, it's still as a piece of that building or in an aggregate with all the other buildings that we have would be. And certainly some of our buildings probably have things like asbestos and other things like that. So is that what we're talking about in buildings, or are we talking about things like boats, docks, pilings, things that have chemical treatments? And how in-depth are we looking at all of this?
Chair to Councillor Liu, that's a great question. Asset retirement obligation is a largely discussed topic because it is a new accounting standard. It is pretty much everything that you mentioned there. It's anything relating to retiring an asset. And whenever you have a legal obligation to retire it, you would look at all of those costs.
Okay, so we're going to start looking at those costs more upfront than when we start buying them probably. So like when we put on photovoltaic panels on top of a building, there's probably some disposal at the end of life. So the whole thing will start to be considered. Okay, thank you. And then just a comment, on our FIN 36 and 37, which is your page 26 and 27, it looks like you've got some great links, and our IT has set it up so we can't get them. So I don't know if either our IT can change that so we can access it, or if we can just get the actual website links to those things. Thank you.
The Chair to Council, absolutely. The links are there, but if they don't work for you, we can work with management to make sure that you're able to access those documents.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all the questions, and we'll look forward to the report and the work that you're doing in terms of the audit, and then I'm sure we'll be speaking to you at the end, if not before.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the second item, the active capital projects information. Yeah, Melissa, is there anything to add to your report?
To the chair, staff has nothing to add.
Move the recommendation. So it's moved and seconded. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through the chair, to staff. Just a couple, brief questions. They'll come up on page 55 or 56. So the first one is the street light LED upgrade program. I know this was the capital program starting in 2020 and it's closed, and I know many of the lights have malfunctioned and now shine violet color. Are we somehow able to get those under warranty so it won't impact future budget? And also, are we delaying the next round of this program until this issue is addressed?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, those purple lights are being replaced under warranty, and no, we are not delaying a further program.
Thanks. Second question to the chair. In that same table there, the Brazilian Alodia management, I know again it's closed in this quarter. Are we anticipating more programs to manage the Brazilian Alodia invasive species, or is that wrapped up?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it is in a monitoring stage at this point, and if there's any needed action, we'll come forward to council or address that with the capital funding.
And my last question, next page, 56. Last point there talks about a linear park along the east side of the property at Gates Avenue, which is out in Hamilton. And I was proud to bring this up because we purchased this parkland on the park trail side of that townhouse development. And then just a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, we approved one further down on Chris Smith Crescent, which is also backing onto this property, or that parkway, which I recall when council approved that, there was a number of trees right along that edge that were to be removed. But now learning that perhaps linear park land could be in the future for that, we actually could have had that stretch of trees saved. So I just want to know, is this linear parkland? Does anyone on staff know? If not, maybe share who I should contact later about it. But would it run that whole stretch of that east side of Hamilton?
Is there anyone here who can answer that? If not, you can take that to Parks and Rec Committee and answer that.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this particular parcel is related to development, so we'll have to follow up and get back to you on that.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, well, first, thanks for the report. Again, very detailed and thorough and lots of good information. Just a couple quick questions. Well, comment, first of all, I think table 10 on the report, page 15, every project coming in at or under budget. That's a very positive thing, and I understand there'd be a lot of controversy if it wasn't that way, so well done. On table 1 on the report, page 3, when it talks about projects that are 2018 and older, and there's a few of them in different categories, but just parks as an example, can you just give an explanation why something would be going on longer than that? Like there's 25 of them, which is a pretty high number. Like, is it due to complexity of the project? Has it been delayed for other reasons? And is that a fairly typical number that we'd see?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, a project can be open for longer than 3 years due to many factors. Sometimes a project can be open to wait until the grants payment to be received from the external parties. Sometimes we can keep the project open because there's minor deficiency to address, or sometimes just due to some regulatory approval process that we're waiting. As for the PARTS program, for the 2018 or prior, there's several projects like Garden City lands that are currently still outstanding. If you would like an update, I think Pat would be happy to answer the questions you have.
Sure, okay, I mean, that makes sense. And with infrastructure, I understand like diking or something would be ongoing for a long time. But just one other question through the chair. Table 1 on, table 2, or figure 2 actually, on the report page 16, when it talks about contributed assets and from developers and that kind of thing. Could you just give a bit of an explanation as to, like, roadways, I think, and laneways was a big one for that. Could you give an example of what that would be, and what's the significance in terms of the contributions that makes to the budget or surplus for the city?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, these are all the consideration negotiated through the rezoning application.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you. I can't hear you.
Oh,
Is there any way you could either get closer to the microphone or speak louder, or both?
Sure. Yeah.
Start again, please.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, all these donated assets are received, consideration are negotiated as part of the rezoning applications. So depending on the timing that the developments are done, so then we receive the assets and we record it at the fair market values. We usually budget it based on the past 4 years average of the donated assets we received it, and it won't be contribute any surplus to the income statement. It will be just a less, because when we receive the asset, we record the asset at the same time, so it won't be contributed to the surplus.
Okay, well.
Yeah, we're going to have to ask you for a memo on that one, please. We just couldn't hear you at all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Those are all the questions. May I have a motion? No, just now. We've already got the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, third quarter financial information, Cindy Gilfillan. Anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Cindy. Third quarter Lulu Island Energy Company. So that's moved and seconded. Anything to add to the report?
Mr. Chair, nothing further to add to the report.
Okay. And no questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And for the Oval, the third quarter finances, is Rick DeSange here? Rick, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Your Worship.
Okay, so that's, is it moved? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Brilliant submission, guys. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Adjournment.
Okay, we're now adjourned, and I'll call the closed GP meeting to order. May I have a motion on